Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. So, Mr. Encyclopedia Man, what is your pick for Gothic horror films?
Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't know. I just went completely.
Yeah,
don't know what the hell happened there.
Suddenly thought Coppola wrote Dracula. Yeah.
What's hilarious is Nicholas. Have you seen this trailer for this Nicolas Cage film?
Oh yeah, Renfield. Yeah, that looks amazing.
Renfield, yeah, where he's playing Dracula.
Apparently, Renfield has superpowers, but sure.
Well, yeah, not in this fucking movie. He doesn't, which is weird.
No. Just basically in a straitjacket.
Yeah, because I don't think he has, because in every other adaptation I've seen of Dracula, Renfield has never had powers. No. So I don't know if they've just made that up for this movie. I've never read the book, so I'm not entirely sure.
No, I've not. I've seen quite a few Dracula films. But...
Yeah, I've seen quite a lot of Dracula adaptations, but I've never seen Renfield have superpowers, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I really want to see the one, it might be a Hammer one, but apparently there is one where he goes around calling himself Alucard, you know, which is Dracula spelt backwards to hide his identity.
Yeah, it's kind of the laziest thing. I think the first time I ever heard that was in an episode of... it wasn't an episode, it was actually an animated movie of Batman versus Dracula. You ever watched that?
No.
Yeah, they've made so many, like, Batman. If you want to get into Batman animation, anybody, like, there are some really crazy ideas out there that have made it into cartoon, and one was Batman versus Dracula. And I remember that because Dracula was going incognito, pretending to be a billionaire at one of Bruce Wayne's billionaire parties, and was like, "I'm Mr. Alucard," you know. And then Bruce Wayne, even, you know, the smartest detective in the world, he had to write Dracula and put it on a mirror. He was like, "Oh, Jesus Christ." You know, Alucard is Dracula spelled backwards.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, Batman, you're a genius.
Anyway, going back to Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, why did you pick this one?
So I think when you said, I suppose there's two reasons, I guess. The more obvious reason is you said, was it Gothic horror movies?
Yeah.
So I just typed that into Google, and it's like,
okay.
You know, bang, okay, Bram Stoker's Dracula was one of the first ones that showed up. And I've watched it, not in a long time, but I have watched it. So I was like, I'll fucking, I don't know, I'll choose this.
Sure. I have seen this before, not for a long time. You know, I remembered Gary Oldman being amazing in it, and Anthony Hopkins was great as well. I remember really liking it, and then watching it again for the podcast, I was like, yeah, this film's weird and batshit insane at times.
Yeah. No, this film is really, really weird. You know, so I will get into that, obviously, when it comes to screenplay, but it is done in a really messy fucking way.
Okay.
And it is pretty strange, but, you know, just how the narrative is also portrayed is pretty messy. But one of the things I definitely do remember quite a lot is actually, like, the visuals. My God, like, there was a lot I didn't remember where I was like, whoa, shit, that happens and that happens. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So much is going on. I don't remember half of this.
So what happens in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula?
So it tells the story of, Dracula. You know, so a long, long time ago, there was a guy, Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracul, who was fighting the Turks, and he beat them, and then they sent a message to his love that he had died in battle, so she killed herself, which meant she was going to hell, because, you know...
Elizabetha.
Yeah, Elizabetha. And so he, you know, gave himself to the devil, you know, became a vampire. She gets resurrected centuries later as Mina. He's still in love with her and wants to, you know, marry her. He basically tricks Jonathan Harper, who is engaged to be wed to her, to come to his estate in Transylvania because he's going to buy land in London. And Jonathan is in the, I suppose, land business. And then he kind of traps Jonathan there in his dungeon and then goes off to try and woo Mina, doing a lot of evil shit along the way. The good guys get Van Helsing, played by Anthony Hopkins, to, destroy Dracula and all the evil shit that he's doing.
So directing then, I love some of the like supernatural weirdness Francis Ford Coppola brings to this film, certainly in the beginning. When Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker gets picked up by like the coach driver, he literally gets picked up by the coach driver.
Yeah. That would have been my first red flag. The coach driver doesn't even move. He literally, he's like Mr. Fantastic. He's got an arm that stretches all the way across, and he picks him up and puts him into the back seat.
Doesn't even touch the ground.
In one motion. Yeah. I would have been like, what the fuck? I'd have jumped out the window.
Like, the camera tracks close to his hand, which, has claws for fingers, picks him up by the shoulder and puts him in the carriage without even touching the ground. When Dracula is talking to Jonathan about his London property and there's the map on the wall, you see like a large shadow on the wall of Dracula. Then he seems to like walk out a shot with the shadow still there. Then Dracula turns up on the other side of the shot with his shadow still intact, which I love weird like stuff like that makes no sense. Later it's more obvious with the shadow trying to like strangle Jonathan and the shadow knocks over a figure on the table. I did quite like that side of the weirdness of this film.
Yeah. I liked also, what was it? The mirror where he's shaving, because obviously he doesn't make a reflection, and he gets all the way towards him. You got this, shot where it's basically almost attached to his hand, and he goes all the way to Jonathan, and like almost touches him, and then Jonathan's like, turns around, and then he's gone. It's like switch the thing. And he's in the doorway. I like that. I thought that was cool. But you've got to think, with all these really weird fucking things happening, Jonathan Harper or Harker has no self-awareness whatsoever.
Probably why they cast Keanu Reeves, to be fair.
It's probably why they cast Keanu Reeves.
The only reason.
Yeah. It's like you think Keanu looks high all the time. So like, I can understand why this wouldn't register.
And sometimes, like, Coppola goes absolutely nuts with the directing when he lands in England and turns himself into a wolf. At one point, I was like, I didn't realize this was a werewolf movie as well, but apparently he can, like, in the book, transform into beasts.
Yeah, he can turn into animals and stuff.
There's, like, incredibly long and fast, like, POV shots that go up and down the grounds of Mina's mansion, like, several times. There's even, like, shots of Dracula's face like projected on the clouds, like face down on top of the frame, which just looks strange.
Yeah.
And then when it's revealed Dracula as a beast and is like shagging Lucy, I did laugh out loud because of how silly it looks. I was like, what the fuck is going on? There's even like a sequence when like Dracula is in London looking younger and it's shot like it's filmed with like really old cameras in like sepia.
Yeah.
So for me, like the craziness is a bit much for me at times. I'm like, whoa, calm down.
It is a lot. Yeah, it is a lot, because one of the few things I remembered were like some of the really cool transitions, because I love transitions.
Yeah, I was thinking of you when the transitions happened.
Yeah, man, because he starts laying them on thick, and I'm like, holy fuck. Like, I thought some of them are great, though, and it's like the rest of them I cannot remember because there were just so many. But one of my favourites actually was the neck bite on Lucy.
Yeah, that's one I remember, yeah.
Where that turned into him with two wolf eyes. I was like, man, that's cool. And you got like so many of them, like the circle with the flame that Van Helsing does to keep the female vampires away, and then that turns into the moon or something. And you're like, wow, this is cool. But it does happen quite a lot where you're like, holy shit, like calm the fuck down, Frank. Because I feel like it starts to get in the way of the narrative where you're like, this is a bit much and I'm not entirely sure where I am right now, So he does that quite a lot. But there are some really cool things. I just think there is so many cool things for a film this length. You're like, this I think would be better paced as a series, and you do some of that shit like over a mini series, because it is a lot. I finished watching this film, I was like, whoa. But yeah, even when you're talking about like having like overlapping scenes where his eyes are in the clouds, they do that shit quite a lot as well.
It does look dated a little bit.
Yeah, but like I think some of my favorite things where that happens are like, what was it, when Mina's remembering and has like two scenes playing, and that's kind of like ghostly and over the top, in the scene, but it's like ghostly, so it's like framed over where she's like dying and shit. And so there's technically so much good, but it does feel like this is so much. This is like a lot.
In the Hammer Dracula films with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, Lee is Dracula, they kind of strip all that stuff away, probably because of budgetary reasons. They weren't big budget films in those days, in the 50s, 60s. But Christopher Lee has just so much presence in those films. His mansion, his castle is kind of like a fairly basic mansion. It's kind of just like one or two or three rooms, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it, he's just got a black cloak on. He's just very tall and powerful and menacing. All the menacingness and scariness is from Christopher Lee himself.
Yeah.
And there's not really much supernatural like weirdness going on. They strip all that stuff back, and they keep it really basic, but it's great for that, though.
Man, how hard was this on Gary Oldman? Because there are so many scenes where he's got different amounts of crap on his face. Like, I mean, there's so many costume changes. Like he goes.
Sometimes I'm like, where is he? Where's he? Where's he
gone? Like, holy shit, man! But he goes from. There are so many different costumes and disguises he wears. It is pretty mesmerizing. Where he's like a warrior, ancient warrior, or whatever on the battlefield. You're like, okay, I get that. Then, the old decrepit man. And then you're like, okay, young. He's now young. And then, you've got the, what was it? Him, actually, even before that, him in this kind of vampire, like, skin is really thin sort of thing when he's in the crates and and then you've got his werewolf self, and then you've got his young self.
He's like, oh, there he is. There's Gary Oldman.
And then you've got this other old version of himself. You're like, Jesus Christ. And then it's like, there's another different, like the vampire with wings bat thing.
The giant vampire bat. I love that design.
Yeah, that was great. And then a different kind of vampire towards the end again, like really old and decrepit and stuff. So you're like, holy fuck, what he must have gone through.
And he's green mist at one point.
Yeah.
I think my favourite design was probably that giant, like, vampire bat. It looks just wonderfully grotesque and with wet grey skin. And then there's a great bit when he goes into, like, full darkness and a load of rats, like, fall onto the floor.
Yeah.
So he's transformed into loads of different rats. I thought that was wonderfully creative.
Yeah, I quite like that. I would have loved to find out how they fucking done that, because that looks so real. Like, he just went in there. And I love the red eyes, red eyes. And then, like, turn on the lights, and it's just rats, but they're in the shape of his body. How hard must that have been to, like, wrangle rats like that?
Yeah, just, like, surprisingly visual in its horror, in that moment.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there is just quite a lot where, there are so many, like, camera tricks and, like, unique camera things. There is a thing of just doing it, like, repeatedly, though. Like, I love transitions, but then it's like, so many scenes are a unique transition. You're like, wow, this is a lot. And then I do like overlaid, doing overlaid scenes, two overlaid scenes, but you're like, man, this is doing it quite a bit. Or, where you get the camera to go crazy and flying around, and you're like, well, you're doing this a lot, man. This is, but it is quite a visual experience. It really is, yeah.
I did actually love the more like under and over cranked look to the POV shots of Dracula as the beast stalking the guards. Then the sequence is great where like Dracula is about to turn Lucy into a vampire, and Mina and Jonathan getting married is kind of like intercut together. And when Dracula is like talking, it's like he's talking to Mina as well as she's getting married. Lucy is about to become a vampire, but Mina will too, sort of thing,
You see the buckets of blood that came out of nowhere when she gets turned.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
And I think like the same is said through the visuals with like Mina and Jonathan kissing and Dracula as a wolf sucking Lucy's blood. Get that sentence right. Then it's all like orangey red behind them as they kiss, like Mina is next kind of thing. So there's a lot of like great visual storytelling as well in that. I do like that. I think for me, my favorite scene is in the tombs with like Van Helsing. And Lucy, like, comes down in, like, a white dress as a vampire.
Yeah, with a baby.
Yeah, with a baby. Yeah. And just drops it. You're like, oh, my God. And Van Helsing seems to, like, scare her with the cross quite quickly back into her coffin. And you're like, oh, well, that was easy. And then she vomits blood all over him whilst he's still... saying all those Latin words or whatever.
Yeah, he's still reciting, and she's just, that was fucking crazy.
You're like, oh, I did not see that coming, but before you know it, her head's flown off and Dracula's snarling in his box. It's great because the film has been pretty crazy with the directing, but not in a suspenseful way until now, in this scene. So, because a lot of like the visual stuff is just kind of like thrown at you, like, blah, look at this. Whereas this is kind of like, there is some suspense here.
I do agree. Yeah, I think that scene is done pretty well because they're in the tomb, hammering away. Are we gonna, if she's dead, gone. She's dead. But if she's not, and then she's gone. And then I do like that because when she comes down, you see her, as you said, in the white dress, then the baby, and then you're like, okay, this is fucked up. And then I like how even the candles are like igniting as she walks down the whole way. You're like, whoa, this is mad. And then, when they ambush her. And I think also at first that she tries to like flirt with them. She's like, oh, I always liked you. Give me a kiss and shit like that. And then they like, jump on her with all the fucking crosses. I think she tries to attack and then is immediately put back in. And then, like you said, you're like, okay, that's done.
You think it's over.
You think it's over. So, yeah, I don't think there are too many scenes where it does that of, building suspense of, oh, you think this is over. It's not. It's another scare. It is usually just relentless other scene.
I think like the last scene
is pretty goddamn relentless.
Basically becomes a western and an action western. I'm like, where did this come from?
Yeah, that's pretty goddamn relentless. Like, he's in his carriage, they're going down, he's like summoning spells and shit. Mina's summoning spell, there's like fucking storms and shit. And like they're attacking the other coach and like pulling him off, and then he gets out of the box and like fucking demolishes them, and and then they stab him and shit. It was pretty full on, like as an ending.
I thought like composition wise and the shots looked amazing, like with the snow going everywhere.
Yeah, I like the snow and also just the lighting as well.
Oh yeah. Just that orangey light.
That looked really good. And I love that where there was a time limit to like kill him before the night set in. And you got this like orange glow everywhere. And just as he like comes out of the box and they're ready to kill him, it's like, the moon is just on the cusp of turning the night. Like it's just gone under and now it's dark. And then... So I liked the lighting. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it looked amazing, but I'm not sure it was in the same film sometimes.
Yeah,
when I watched it, I'm like, it's an action film now. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was watching a horror film, but sure.
This is one of the things that it is, as you said, like the ending is pretty relentless. And there are many scenes which are just like fucking relentless, man. It is a bit much. And I would say like one thing that kind of screwed me up actually in a lot of scenes. Maybe it's actually the usage of transitions and stuff. But I was really losing a sense of time. like when all of this was occurring.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like they're on the tail of Dracula, and then it was like, we're doing that, and then you're like, the scene skips to somewhere else, and sometimes you'd have like transitions that kind of led nowhere. So it's like, oh, this turns into an animal. Where the fuck is this going on? Where is this happening? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like the scene doesn't carry on from there. So I did constantly lose a sense of where the hell are we? You know,
in the story,
in the story, in many shots. I think it negatively impacts the flow of the narrative, where I'm just like, there's so much going on, and you're trying to do a lot of things so fanciful that I'm not really sure where I am spatially, and when exactly is this taking place. Yeah, so it was one of those things. Like, I feel like if I could watch it, maybe these are all happening like fairly close to each other, but then I could interpret maybe it's days or weeks apart. It is a bit like heavy. Like sometimes I do wish that the film would just slow up a bit, you know, just for 10 minutes. Let me breathe. You know?
I feel like they're trying to keep up the pace and like trying to ram a lot of story in there with voiceover with Van Helsing.
Yeah, that's true.
And with Jonathan as well. Like towards the end, like, okay, we need to explain things. Voiceover. Let's do that.
Oh, here's how we found him, and we searched in, and then he missed us and ducked us. And
yeah. Oh, I've seen that great film Indiana Jones. Let's do the map thing.
Yeah. So I do feel like the film does have this. Like, it's technically brilliant, and there are so many great shots and moments and sound design and costumes and sets and everything. It's all just really fucking good. But it is a bit, as I've used this word so many times, it's a bit relentless, where you're like, this is so much. I need
lots of movie.
I need space. I need like you to do this shit, and then 10 minutes let me breathe. Then do some other shit. Then 10 minutes let me breathe. So I do feel maybe even this film could have been longer, but just
we will not let you breathe.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe this film could have even been longer, but just have breathing spaces. Just have stuff where everything slows right down. You know, people are just talking about whatever, and just like, you know, calm it down. You know, or even if you don't want to calm it down and make it whatever, you can even calm it down and just make it creepy. Like just have an atmosphere for 10 minutes before you beat me over the head with everything. You know. Yeah. And that's one thing I didn't really remember from my first time watching it, of just how much is just constant, you know.
You got a favorite scene or shot then?
Oh man, I got quite a few actually. I think the one that always sticks in my head though is the bites. I think that's fucking awesome. The scene where like Jonathan is being munched on by those sexy ladies, but he's like really into it. That was fucking awesome. Like how they kind of they come out of the bed. They like just appear.
Yeah.
It's like there's rustles on the bed and they just appear out of the bed. And they're doing all this sexy shit and it's quite sexy. And you're like, oh, this is sexy. He's into it. Yeah. And then they're like biting his nipple. Blood is coming off of his body. Like they're cutting into him. And
yeah, that was really good, I thought.
Melting his cross. And you're like, isn't this painful? You know? It's just like, oh yeah.
It feels good though, man.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was like, whoa. There's a lot of visual stuff I could keep going on there. I think there are many shots I really like.
Directing score for me, again, like a bit like the Mask of the Red Death, I kind of appreciate a lot of the production design. Yes, there's a lot of money in here. I think definitely there should have been elements where like things should have been stripped back a little bit.
Yeah.
Not too much, but like the stuff with like Dracula being projected on the clouds, I'm like, I could have done without that. Yeah. That just seemed a bit silly to me.
Well, you know, how about like him summoning like flame from the sky and all this weird shit, and like the flame at the gate, and
apparently the blue flame stuff is supposed to be like a marker for where treasure is. It's like the essence of where treasure is, and the coach driver apparently gets out and like puts a stone by when it does burn out, so he can get the treasure when he comes back or something.
Okay, so that's completely omitted. One of the things that I actually I didn't even talk about this, the intro to the film, I quite like that as well, where it's like his fucking armor, like when he's a man. I like how that looks. That just looks like muscles. You know, it looks like these ornate designed, like it's like a man without skin. And then when he's on the battlefield, it's done like puppets and shit in shadows, and like him raising like a fucking Turk and all this blood and guts. I quite liked the callback where he's trying to woo her at the movie things.
Yeah.
And he sees like, you know, puppeteers. that whole scene was pretty crazy. Like, there was so much going on, but I think you can say that with a lot of scenes, and there's so much going on, And then I also like when he denounces God and plunges the sword into the crucifix, and blood starts shooting out of the crucifix. That was fucking metal as fuck, man.
That was a bit excessive.
I think it's cool.
I was just like, what the hell?
I think there's so much cool stuff. I think it's just there's a risk of there's too much cool stuff in such a short period of time that you feel like your head's been fried. You're like, geez. So that's a massive criticism I have for it.
I'll go like a 7.6.
Yeah.
How about you, sir?
Oh man, it's so like as I said before, like there's so much that I technically like.
Yeah.
And like any of these bits, I would give it 9s, because I just think there's so much that's technically amazing, but it's too much, too soon. No breath, no breaks.
There's not enough balance, as you said. Yeah.
There's not enough balance. Yeah, it really does just feel like you're being battered with like, oh, I'm clever, aren't I?
Watch my movie.
Everything. Yeah, you're like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Watch it now.
Yeah. So I feel like. Yeah, I think it works as like a visual experience, but I don't think it quite helps the film. I think it distracts from the film. It's too much. So that is a shame. Yeah, so it's one of those things. Like if you take out half of all the crazy stuff, I would give it 9s. That's the annoying thing. I just think there's too much. Oh, this is infuriating. Oh man, I don't know. I think maybe I'll give it 7.4.
Okay.
Yeah, but not as good as I remember it. I think I just remembered a bit of it, and then I was like, the bits I remember, I like that, and I didn't know I couldn't remember how fucking relentless this movie was. It's such a shame.
So, screenplay then. The prologue scene I thought looked amazing, as you said, Bowers, with like the silhouetted, like dead blokes on spikes. Maybe he just got hungry, I don't know. He saw like a marshmallow party and he was like, I want some of that.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, I love that transition where Van Helsing is looking through that picture of like Dracula in a banquet hall with like loads of people on spikes, and then it just transitions to him, waiting for Mina, and Mina hasn't arrived. That was pretty cool.
The acting from Gary Oldman is amazing. When he goes all like rageful when he learns his wife has killed herself. And I can understand that he's pissed and wants to take revenge against the church, but to immediately decide he wants to be a vampire now was a bit of a stretch for me. He's like, give me blood, I need darkness to fill me up. I'm like, whoa. Like, mourn first, dude.
0 to 100 in 2 seconds. Yeah.
Blood just comes out of the cross, as you said. Like, I felt like it was a bit clunky to me, a little rushed. But again, as we've kind of said, this film goes at a click. It goes really quickly.
It goes at a fucking pace.
But I also can understand that people can do stupid things when they're really rageful. So I can see both sides a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell, like, he absolutely regrets his choice. Well, you don't tell. I think it's really late into the film you get any sort of idea that he regretted his choice. I would say, like, when he's turning Mina, and he's like, I don't want this for you. And there's like, oh, but I want this. Okay, yeah, fuck it. Like, do it,
Yeah.
So I think that's the only regret you have. That It is also kind of funny that he gets, like, a redemption arc. And, she kisses him and he turns human, and then she puts him out of his misery, where you're like, this motherfucker has fed babies to vampires. He fucking made was it Lucy?
He shagged Lucy as a werewolf. Come on.
Shagged Lucy, yeah, and turned her into a vampire for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is a piece of shit. So I didn't really get that from a script writing point of view, where they were like, because I get why Mina would sort of feel that way, because she's reincarnated, and so she even feels sorry for. I feel sorry for him, and she goes these fucking huge things of like, oh, he's evil, but I love him, And I can get it, she's reincarnated.
It's kind of this like sexual repression being unleashed.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But then Van Helsing was like, "Oh, we've become madmen of God." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I didn't get that line. It's like, why should you feel sympathy for this fucking demon monster? Like, you're not doing anything bad here. This motherfucker's got off easy, you know? So I didn't get that. Like, try and, make him seem like he's King Kong. Like, you feel sympathy for King Kong because that's not his goddamn fault. Everything that Dracula does,
is dickish.
Yeah, he's a dickish. He didn't need to do all that shit.
This might sound really dumb on my part, but I do find it kind of interesting. But like the relationship between Mina and Dracula is interesting because I think there is some ambiguity here of why Dracula has targeted Mina to be the one he's waited all this time to truly love. Because Winona Ryder is playing two characters. His wife, Elizabetha, in the prologue, and Mina. For me, it feels too easy just to cast the same actor for the basis of your story. There could be some reincarnation thing going on here, which could be the obvious thing, because the film certainly has a strong religious element. It's like, Dracula has awoken Elizabetha with his love for her in some kind of way. They have like a strong mind connection, as Van Helsing puts it. All the passion is between Dracula and Mina and not Mina and Jonathan. But I feel like the film is too crazy at times for this film to really put that across in more of a convincing way in the storytelling. I feel like the audience has to fill in some of the gaps here, but not in like a good way. That could be the fault of the acting from Winona Ryder, but I found myself thinking too much like, why exactly is Dracula going after Mina? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can sort of see what you mean.
Yes, they've cast Winona Ryder as the same person, but I'm like, I feel like there should have been more of a reveal of that she is reincarnated as Elizabetha. I didn't get that enough for me. Because it feels like the film is just trying to say, yeah, this is the same person right from the off.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just too easy for me.
Yeah, okay, I kind of get what you mean. Okay, I get what you mean. I don't think it's so much of a stretch. When you're trying to do like a script and you want to give the audience something to like wait for, you don't reveal your hand straight away. I think that's the sort of thing. It's like, if she is reincarnated, that should be the twist. That should be the twist much later. You go, she's a reincarnation. And then you go, oh, fucking hell. I didn't see that coming. But it does seem like it comes out of the gate with that really strong. It's the same actress. She has like an uncontrollable attraction to him, like on the off. And then, you got that scene where she basically, quote unquote, guesses everything about Romania.
Yeah.
You're like, this bitch is reincarnated, whatever. But it does come out like straight out of the gate. Yeah, she's reincarnated. I kind of get that. It's like there's no mystery there. Or if you kind of go that there is a mystery, you're like, I don't get it. Like, is she? Like, it can't be that. I get your thing of like, it can't be that simple.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't like address it
enough. Yeah. Well, they just address it by just casting Winona Ryder as the same person.
Yeah, essentially. They address it by casting Winona Ryder. And yeah, because it could be her love for him is the fact that he is a sexual, because she's kind of a little into Lucy as well. I don't know what the hell was going on in the rain, like if he had summoned a like horny storm or something to make them really horny. But that they ran out into the rain and started kissing. I was like, wow, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I don't think there's any attempt to like really do like the Vertigo thing, like spoilers for Vertigo, but like Kim Novak is with James Stewart's character, and you think she's killed herself jumping off a bell tower, and then James Stewart like sees the same character again, and you're like, is this the same character or is it just a doppelganger? And there's that whole mystery going through, and there's not really anything here in this film like that at all. Yeah, in Vertigo it ends up being that Kim Novak faked her death and just tried to be a different identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of get that. I think the way you can do it differently, because I mean, like, I don't know what it's like in the book, and to be honest, when you're doing an adaptation, you can like put that shit as a guide.
Yeah.
But I think maybe a better way of doing it is you don't know what Dracula is up to start with. Maybe do that backstory a lot later. Don't start up with that. He's evil. So you're like, I don't know, he's evil, he wants to conquer the world or some shit. Then it's like he's seducing her. You're like, oh, what's he up to? Then maybe his backstory, and then maybe a lot later she's the reincarnation of whatever.
Yeah.
Because then you've got these stepping stones of like, oh,
At least, like, make it harder for us.
You know, I'm just saying, like, it feels like stepping stones. It feels like your audience is going somewhere on this journey.
Yeah.
Oh, this is happening. Oh, wait, this is happening. I think instead what you get is, like, Dracula comes to London and he fucks shit up for, like, 2 hours. Where you're like, good God, he's fucking shit up. And then, you know, and then he gets killed.
And it's obvious that Mina is Winona Ryder, and then essentially the film becomes very basic.
Yeah. I
The
agree
fact
with
that
that.
just Van Helsing and co. just need to stop Dracula. That's it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and to be honest, in the most basic way, just stab the fuck out of him before it's nighttime. Just gang on him. There isn't like I don't know, we've got to search for an artifact, or there's this only one way to kill him or whatever. They essentially just like dogpile on him and stab the shit out of him. So yeah, I do think there is a lack of this sort of these narrative
mystery.
Mystery and sort of
for Mina.
Yeah, I do agree with that actually. Yeah, I do think there's not much that I'm not being taken on a journey here. Stuff happens. Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, Jonathan's character is a little dumb in the film.
Yeah, he's super dumb, man. He's really stupid.
There's a moment where Jonathan confronts Dracula about the weird stuff that's been going on, and he mentions wolves chasing him on the way here. Yes, through a blue inferno. Yes, that's weird, but nothing about what Dracula has been doing. Like moments before, he's tapped you on the shoulder from behind.
Yeah,
and he wasn't even in the room yet, and and then literally floats towards you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Is that not weird, Jonathan?
Yeah, unless he lifts up his skirt and he has like skates. There's no way, like, unless he's got, you know, those Heelys.
Segway.
Yeah, you know those kids, the kids with the Heelys. They would do that shit. Yeah. Like, you'd be walking next to a kid and then they'd suddenly go. You're like, what the fuck's going on? And you're like, they got Heelys.
I bought these new trainers off eBay.
They are Heelys. I can get some sick air with this. Yeah, like, and then what was ridiculous as well is after he gives this whole speech about this is crazy and weird, and then fucking Dracula scales the building, you know, like Spider-Man. Like, what the fuck? Jump out of the goddamn window, man. Run to the gate. Call someone. Shout. Send letters. Send help. Fucking stab this thing.
He's like, oh yeah, that's normal. He's just repairing the roof. That's fine.
Yeah. Burn this place to the ground. It is kind of funny because, like, yeah, Dracula doesn't even try to be subtle.
Well, I mean, even to, like, the costume, like, his first, like, old appearance, I'm like, the guy is creepy as hell. Yeah, goodbye, see ya.
Yeah, he's obviously a vampire. Yeah, goodbye. And, like, his coachman, a giant in a fucking...
Yeah.
Like, why didn't he immediately go? I just... It is so on the nose where you're like, man, Jonathan is a fucking moron. You know?
So I think the film, like, overdoes it quite a lot with, like, the supernatural stuff in relation to why he should stay with this guy.
And he's like, you're staying for another month. I would be like, really?
So I think the supernatural stuff is hiding it from Jonathan isn't balanced enough before he realizes he's a prisoner. So
yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
Favorite lines?
Oh man,
I love the one from Tom Waits' Renfield when he says, "Would you care for an order, Dr. Stewart, or a canapé?" And it's like crushed bugs, you know.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious.
I'm clearly a loon.
Yeah, I like when Lucy was like flirting with the Texan. It was like, "Oh, it's so big. Can I touch it?" And pulls out his.
That was ridiculous. It's like, oh, it's so big. I'm like, oh my god! I thought they were going to go into a fucking porn movie. I'm like, what the hell?
That was fucking awesome. He pulls out this giant blade. It gets really horny at various points in this film. The female cast members like Lucy and Mina, they get like felt up and kissed a lot. You know, I did feel like this was getting a little pervy, and you know, even Anthony Hopkins got some action.
The American guy, when he sees Lucy, he says, and And may I say, Miss Lucy is hotter than the June bride riding bareback, butt naked in the middle of the Sahara. I'm like, Jesus Christ. That was just hilarious.
That was pretty funny.
Great one from Richard E. Grant and reply from Anthony Hopkins where he says, yeah, so something just went up there, sucked it out of her and flew away, I suppose. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. I think my favourite line is where Mina asks Van Helsing, like, did Lucy suffer? He goes, yeah, she suffered tremendously. Then we cut off her head and impaled her heart and burnt her for good measure. And he's like, what the fuck? Yeah. And they're like, dude, that was quite funny.
Yeah, that was my favourite line, I think. Well, I think he says, an autopsy, Lucy? No, not exactly. I just want to cut off her head and take out her heart.
Yeah,
that was my favourite.
That was funny. I actually love the phrase, like, I've travelled through oceans of time to get to you. Like, to me, that's always romantic as fuck. You know, it's just so awesome.
Anthony Hopkins does have some great lines where he says, like, she lives beyond the grave of God, a wanderer in the outer darkness. She is vampire. No, she is
Nosferatu.
Vampire.
Yeah.
No, he says vampire, Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was cool.
Screenplay score for me, then, you know, this is not my favourite, like, Dracula film. I would say probably my favourite one is probably Dracula, the Christopher Lee Hammer one. It's so good. And, like, Prince of Darkness is great as well, the sequel. As I said, it basically just, it's stripped back and it's genuinely scary at times, for me anyway.
Yeah.
You know, Christopher Lee is amazing in that. But in this, yeah, as we've said, it's in directing as well. It's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot rammed down your throat. And I feel like Coppola is just trying to put everything that's in the book in this film, like everything.
Yeah, I think that might be the truth. So, I think I agree with you. I feel like if you strip down a lot of the visuals, but then when it comes to the script, you really streamline that. You start cutting away the fat and you structure it a little better into, like, do you know what I mean? Like, keep a lot secret and then just reveal it over time.
Yeah, because for me, the prologue and the end feel a little rushed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I'll go like a 7.4.
Yeah, I do feel the pacing is a bit off.
How about you, sir?
Oh, man. I think I prefer the directing to the writing, so I'm going to go a 7.
Straight 7?
Yeah.
Right. Acting, then. I love Anthony Hopkins in this film as Van Helsing. I mean, I love Anthony Hopkins in anything. I fucking love the dude. I think he's one of the best actors that has ever lived, in my opinion. He's so watchable. You know, firstly, he just brings some quality acting to this film. He has, like, great quality in his performance that he could be, like, hiding something, especially when he meets Mina for the first time, Winona Ryder's character, and explains that there's always darkness and light in the world, and she is one of the lightest lights. Then he smells her and he lets her go, and you're like, why did he just smell her? You know, he brings incredible subtlety to his acting with his eyes in this very, like, unsubtle film.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, there's something a bit off about Van Helsing here. Then it's like the craziness of the film infects Anthony Hopkins when he realizes that the monster is Dracula and decides to dry hump the American in excitement. And it's like, what the hell? It's just really bizarre.
I thought that was a bit much.
Why are you trying to dry hump him? Just hug him or something.
Because what was it? Like, there's a, like, unholy storm going on as he's reading this, and he gets, like, really worked up. It's like, yes. And then, and the way he talks to all the guys to get them together and move on is a bit weird. It is a bit like over the top.
But for me, like, Anthony Hopkins and Gary Oldman are by far the best things in this.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah, I love Anthony Hopkins. I like even, like, when he's introduced and he's a lot more he's quite jokey. Like, he knows what he's talking about. He's an intellectual, but that he's not over just having fun and taking the piss. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I like his huge thing about, like, syphilis and civilization and all this shit. And I just thought it was kind of funny, but it was not too much. I think you've got to try and get this balance of he's a professor, he is a doctor, he's an intellectual, and he's having fun, but not that he's a clown. You don't want to like overdo it. And I think he kind of strikes that kind of balance. And
I feel like he does overdo it with the dry humping.
I think that does definitely overdo it. That does definitely overdo it, where he does become very clownish in that scene. But I think before that, he was straddling that line, and it was pretty good.
And certainly he's trying his absolute best with phenomenally bad acting opposite him. Yeah, so Keanu Reeves is in this film. Who is phenomenally bad at times. And it just makes me wonder, how the hell did Keanu get cast in this film? I'm not against Keanu Reeves. I think he's great in certain roles, like action roles, as he's basically playing himself.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great. But he's playing an English gentleman
with a god-awful accent.
Yeah.
What's hilarious is like fucking Anthony Hopkins, Englishman, Gary Oldman, Englishman. They're playing like, I don't know what the fuck Anthony Hopkins is. I think he's like from
Dutch or something.
Yeah, so he's like German or Dutch or whatever. And obviously Gary Oldman is like Romanian. And I think they do that pretty well. And you're like, that is a million miles away from English. You're an American. You've got to sound English. You're like, that isn't like a fucking continent away, right? Yeah. Culturally at least. Yeah. But his English accent is just appalling.
And there's a scene at a feast with Anthony Hopkins where he says, I don't think I've ever heard a line reading so bad, where he says, I know where the bastard sleeps. I brought him there to Cargax Abbey.
That is exactly how he sounds.
It's the worst English accent I think I've ever heard.
That sounds like a school play.
I think like Anthony Hopkins must be like, am I dreaming or did that just actually happen? Keanu at times looks like he's thinking, why am I in this film? I do feel sorry for him at times though. It's, oh God, the poor guy.
Not good.
I can literally see a moment surely with Keanu Reeves and Coppola like, so why am I in this? Yeah, he's not good at all.
No.
At all.
No.
I thought Winona Ryder is a bit hit and miss with her character, but she completely transforms when she's in effectively vampire mode, trying to seduce Van Helsing near the end, threatening to like rip her dress off, and you're like, bloody hell, she's going to do it because the film has shown a few boobies already, Then when she says something like, I know what men desire, and Anthony Hopkins is like, yeah, I know, yeah, right, and passionately kisses her, and I was like, well, that was easy. There was no resistance from Van Helsing. He's like, yep, I'm definitely kissing you. Yes, he soon snaps out of it, but it was the timing of the line to him kissing her which made it feel completely out of character for Van Helsing.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
But Winona Ryder is amazing in that scene, I think.
Yeah. I would say another scene I quite like is when like Dracula comes to her bedroom. I actually quite like that. And and then at the end, he turns into that giant bat we've talked about. But I think even the scene prior to that, I think that's like, to me, that's my favorite Winona Ryder bit in the film, because I think you're kind of spot on. Like, it's a bit hit and miss, like through the film, but I quite like that because I don't know. It was just a case of she's like madly in love. I need you, I want you, and then you son of a bitch, like quite angry at him. I thought that was pretty believable. I was like, yeah, this guy's evil. Yeah, I just liked how she slid in and out of those two frames because it's quite different. So I quite like that. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like through the first half of the film, she's a bit hit and miss.
I think Gary Oldman is great, actually, to be fair, in all his forms, even though sometimes you're like, where is he under all this? But certainly, like, the first time you see him in the red cloak and the white, grey, scaly, wrinkly skin, he's absolutely great with the voice as well.
Yeah.
I guess you could, see a bit of Vincent Price in there as well, which I don't mind at all with the voice.
Yeah.
But even with him as a, when you actually do see Gary Oldman properly as a younger man, like, I think he's great as well. He kind of brings some humanity towards him, and you can really feel, I think they do have a little bit of chemistry, not massive amounts between him and Winona Ryder, but I think it is there.
Yeah, I think there is some chemistry. And one of the things I think is great is in his many forms he acts differently. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think when he's like younger and more human, he's trying to act more like, I don't know what the word is, but like vulnerable and and sort of with some decorum. Like, but when you first see him and he's old and all that shit, he's like really snaky, really fucking weird, really creepy. And I think I really like the scene where he talks about his family, the family of Dracula and stuff. And Jonathan, and he says, "Oh, we made a deal with God, but that didn't go very well." And Jonathan laughs, and he pulls out a sword, and he goes fucking ballistic, and then calms down. And he's like, whatever, And I quite like that. I thought that was fucking awesome.
So, favorite performance, Bowers? Who are you going for?
I think I'll go Gary Oldman. I even quite like the girl that did Lucy. Actually, I thought she was really good.
Yeah, she was definitely the best, like, female vampire.
Yeah, I think she was fucking great.
Sadie Frost.
Yeah, I'd even put her above Winona Ryder, like, as an actress in the film. Like, I think she was really fucking good.
Yeah, she was. I think she was genuinely scary in that tomb scene.
Yeah,
like holding the baby, she was terrifying. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the tomb scene, she was great, and even though she is comical as sort of so as her like horny friend, I think when she was like she was getting really bad, like she's on the bed and she thinks she's dying. I think that was pretty good. Like, she looked really vulnerable. And then to go from that to seductress back to, I don't know what the fuck's going on with me. I thought that was all done pretty damn well and didn't seem like ridiculous or whatever. So I thought she was really good.
For me, I think I'll go... Gary Oldman is amazing in the role. Really brings some great dramatic acting to it, which I do tend to like, as well as like subtle stuff, of course. But I think I'll go with Anthony Hopkins because he's Anthony Hopkins and he's amazing.
Yeah, he is. I think I'll go Gary.
Acting score for me, it's a difficult one because, like, Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins are great. I wouldn't say they're like outstanding or amazing. They're just like great, And the other female cast, the women in the film are kind of just below that, but then you have Keanu Reeves, which is like all the way down there.
Do you think he's like the millstone around the neck of this production?
Yeah.
He's just like, you're letting the side down. Everybody is really trying, and then he's like, "Oh, Hugh Grant's it." No, it's not Hugh Grant.
Richard E.
Grant is in this film as well. Yeah, he was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always lovely to see him as well in a movie. So I think. This is hard. This is hard, man. I'm tempted to go in the 5s, to be honest.
5s? Holy shit.
I'll go like a 6.1. There you go.
I think it's difficult because, because he's in it so much, isn't he? Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I wouldn't go that far down. So actually, I'm going to change some of my scores, if that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah. For like screenplay, I'm going to go 6.8 rather than the 7 that I put. For acting, I think I'm going to go a 7.
A 7? All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think, as bad as Keanu Reeves is, I think, he's one actor out of like a bunch that are doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, okay.
That's where I feel.
Right, let's lock down the scores and let's add them up for Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of stuff this film could do to like get a really good score, which I think is kind of annoying. Like, if you got rid of Keanu Reeves in the acting department, that would bump it up. And then if you had a more streamlined, focused script, and then you just like took it easy on the directing, just take it easy, slow it down a bit. I think this would be like a masterpiece, but it's just not really. It's such a shame.
So, Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula gets...
No, you mean Keanu Reeves, Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah. No, like Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Oh, shit, Keanu Reeves is in this film. Dracula.
And it's not The Matrix,
Gets 42.3. So, The Mask of the Red Death wins.
That is crazy.
With 44.1. Vincent Price always wins. with his roast ham.
So what was the difference in scores?
Less than 2 points.
That's mad.
So next episode, as we're going to be starting up our Legends series of episodes. So throughout the year, we'll be doing a few Legends ones. So we're not actually going to be relating an episode to a cinema release. So basically what we're doing here is we're looking at actors, directors that have either had really long careers, retired, or sadly passed away. And our guest for this week, for next episode, is from Why the Flick, and they have chosen out of the choice of actors that I gave her Robin Williams films. So that'll be a great one to choose. She's already picked her film for that, so check out that episode for next time. Should be a corker talking about the great Robin Williams. I think for me, one of the finest comedic and dramatic actors we've had. So it is goodbye from our local Count. Boaz Dix. Goodbye, sir.
Okay, see you, man.
And it is goodbye from me. I'm going to dig up a load of earth and put it in a box and go to bed. Bye-bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.